Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I've got a quick video for you. This one's going to be real simple. It's just how to tune the Brian Brown Knives Raptor. The Raptor is a really cool model from Brian Brown. This one in particular is the kind of just standard titanium without speed holes, and it's a frame lock, as you can see. Tuning this knife is really simple, just like many other modern folding knives. There's really just kind of a couple of things that you'll want to be aware of. Reasons why you might want to tune your knife would be things like if the blade comes off center. You'll see right now I'm actually pretty perfectly centered as it is. But yeah, if you notice your blade starts to walk to one side or the other within the handle, it's probably time for a tune-up. If you notice that the action starts to become gritty, there may be something in the bearings, or maybe it's just dry in there, things like that. There are a couple of little things you can do just to tune the knife to make it run nice and smooth and be centered and be kind of what you want it to be and expect from a knife of this caliber. So tuning is real simple. Basically, the main thing you're going to want to deal with when you're tuning is all right up here in the pivot assembly. So you can see we've got a pivot screw here that is tooled. That should be a T8. And yep, T8 locks right in. This is actually a Brian Brown driver I've got here, but you could use any Torx T8 driver that you want. I use, this one's a T6, but here's a Weehaw driver. A T8's right next to it. Weehaw makes great drivers. I'm running a Weehaw bit in this Brian Brown driver here. So a T8 bit and a driver is going to be all that you'll really need for this knife. I believe all the hardware on here is T8. Let me confirm that real quick. Yeah, we're T8 on the clip, T8 on the body screws, T8 even on the lock bar insert. So all of the hardware on here is T8. So the only tool you'll need to tune this knife, or even if you're going full disassembly, which I'll talk about in a subsequent video, you just need a T8 bit, which is nice and easy. The only other things you're going to really need to tune up a knife, in my opinion, is it's good to have a napkin just in case. I also oftentimes keep some Q-tips around so I can clean up internally without taking the knife apart. You can reach some things with a Q-tip, that's nice. This knife is nice and clean right now, so I'm not going to do that. But I also like to keep certain like cleaning tools around. This is something I got at like a Container Store. I don't know. This is overboard. You don't need something like this, but it's for cleaning electronics. You've got like a silicone tip here. If I can get this to focus, that's nice. And then on the other side, there's a brush that can reach in and clean. So there's things like that that could be handy, I guess. We're not going to really need that. I also keep in my handy dandy jar over here, what I mean to show you is knife lubricant. This could be a couple of different variations. I have a couple options here. I've got KPL Heavy, I've got regular KPL, I've got Gunny Glide. The regular KPL and the Gunny Glide are both just knife lubricants. That's what we're going to run on the bearings in this knife. And then KPL Heavy is, generally speaking, more for things like your detent ball. So internally, we've got a couple of things that are making this knife either smooth or not smooth. The bearings are number one. The way that those bearings are running is the most important thing on how smooth this is going to be. But then also that detent ball, there's a ceramic ball set in there that can cause you to get a little bit of grit every now and then if that gets dirty. So just make sure that that ball is clean, and you can usually just kind of do that visually. You can run a Q-tip over it, things like that. And then we're going to make sure that we're centered. So let me show you real quick what it's going to look like if we're not centered. When I loosen this pivot, look at that. We are now, oh man, we are now not centered. You can see that the blade is over to one side of the handle. It's even touching the handle over here. That's exactly what we don't want. We want the knife to be nice and centered. So what I'm going to do while this pivot's actually slightly loose is take the opportunity to add some lubricant into it, and then I'm going to tighten it to where I'm nice and centered. And that's really tuning your knife, right? If it's still gritty after a tune-up like this, that's when you'll talk disassembly. But oftentimes I find that keeping my knives nice and smooth does not require a disassembly. It just requires getting down in there into the bearings. You'll see I'm going to try to kind of go between these are tight tolerances, but I can, with this kind of needle application thing, I can get some lubricant right down into there. I don't want to squirt so much into there that it's going to be dripping or anything like that. I really just want a drop or two to get down into those bearings, and then I'm going to kind of work that in, make sure that I can already feel it's getting a little smoother, it's gliding a little bit more than it was before. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go ahead and take my tool. This is not a captive pivot on this iteration of the Raptor, so I'm going to apply some pressure with my thumb over here to this side of the pivot that's not tooled. I'm going to insert the tool on the other side, and we're going to go ahead and tighten until I achieve centering, and it's right there. I'm nice and centered. I'm kind of all the way tight now. I like to back it off just the tiniest hair from there. You can kind of feel to where you're all the way tight, it's not really going anymore, and then just a tiny bit of a turn away from that is where I like to run knives. And bada bing, bada boom, we're smooth. We are back on center. And really that's the key on a frame lock like this, the way this knife is constructed, to achieve centering and good action. One step beyond that, if you notice a little bit of grittiness, like I mentioned, can be using some heavy lubricant. You could use the same lubricant for this as well, but the heavy just sticks a little better. I'm going to put that onto the actual detent ball, and if I can get some to come out, there we go. A little bit on the detent ball itself. Now I'm going to run that through the detent track a little bit, get that to where it's all the way set down in the hole, and I can feel that my detent track is now feeling just a little bit smoother. So through and through, this knife is just nice and centered and nice and smooth, and that's really all there is to it. It's just a couple little things that you can control from the outside of the knife without disassembling it, where you're just really adding lubricant, adjusting the pivot if it begins to walk to make sure that it stays centered, and that's kind of all there is to tuning a knife like this. So there you have it. Hopefully you find that a little bit helpful if you're looking to tune yours, and if you're looking to do more of a disassembly, that'll be another video. But thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.